Hello, everyone. Welcome again to the Soft Skills Salon. I remain Diana Kowarski, your host for this Audible think tank. What we say at the Soft Skills Group and on this podcast is conversation is the currency of communication. So let's have a conversation. And today I am thrilled to invite and to introduce to everyone Dr. Chaz Michael Austin. I was particularly impressed with all of your names and then the opportunity to refer to you only as Dr. Chaz. So Dr. Chaz Michael Austin, we will refer to you as Dr. Chaz from now on, has for the past 20 years worked with clients all over the world, advising leaders on how to be more effective and training workers to market themselves in the gig economy. He has been a college professor for over 20 years as well, teaching a wide range of courses in business, leadership, and communication. His TED Talk, Wake Up to the Gig Economy, is one that I have recently watched myself and thought quite highly of. So here we are. Dr. Chaz, welcome.
Thank you, Diana. Great to be here.
So it's a lovely time having you here, Dr. Chaz. Thank you again for agreeing to do this. And thank you for choosing actually a few of our questions so we can start our conversation. So let's dive in. The first of your selected questions reads, what does success leading others look like to you? What comes to mind?
In thinking about the answer for this, it may sound a little strange, but I want the people that I lead to be so successful at what they do for me and for our team that they leave, that they've actualized themselves to a point where I need to get out of here. I need to do more. I found something that I didn't realize I was able to do. I've been successful at it, and now I need to move forward, which means I have to quit. And that to me is, in a sense, a win. When I teach students about self-marketing, the win is that they call me one day and say, I can't be in class anymore because I got a job and I start this morning. That's the point. That people keep moving onwards and upwards. And if you leave me because you had the opportunity as part of my team to do something you never thought you could do before and win at it, then it's great. And really, selfishly, in a sense, they move on to something else. We're now colleagues. And now I have a friend at another place where we might be able to do business together. I have a colleague who has a great line. She said, I want all my friends working. That way they're all in a position to help me.
So really then success leading others is to develop one's own network. I'm hearing a resonance here with
that. That's part of it. Yes, to develop your own network, but to the joy of seeing someone be able to do things they could never have imagined doing before and moving on from there and being able to say, I helped them get there. And we remain colleagues, and we're able over time to continue to support each other and be a resource for each other.
There's a series of words that have resonated with me in your answer, and they're all of a similar palette, if I may. I've heard the word success and actualize and support and even joy. It's not always that in response to a question, what does success leading others look like to you, that words of that positive palette necessarily are what comes to top of mind. And if in actualizing themselves, they are hopefully seeking out their own joy through some new opportunity, is there, while they are still with you, when you are leading that team or that individual, is there a particular example of how you can support as a leader or how one should support as a leader?
I think first of all, you need to create a safe space for people. where, and this is so often, unfortunately, not done. Bosses will say, "My door is always open." And then you walk in with a good idea and you walk out a flat tire because really what they've done is put you down. And like a child who gets hurt one time, they don't go back to that person. So you don't go back to the boss because they're hypocrites. They say they are open to new ideas, but they're not. I have flipped that and made the environments that I create safe places for people to come up with outrageous ideas and not be mocked for them, but try to understand where they're coming from, because they do have a perspective on things that I don't, being a leader and being in the background a bit. And I need to seriously take their ideas and see if they're workable and maybe tweak them a little. But once you work for me and you see, hey, he actually listened to me and he actually implemented, wow, I like this guy, and I'm going to keep coming up with interesting ideas as I see things, because I know I'm heard and appreciated.
There's so much to be said around what safe space can actually be. And certainly you've given some examples there around the importance of being listened to, especially by that person who has the immediate leadership role in your on-the-job experience.
If I may add a couple of quick quotes. One is from a piece I wrote about how to lead and manage people. And truly the bottom line in this, it says, and I wrote this, a great leader is a gardener. He or she creates a safe environment for their people and protects and nurtures that environment so they can grow and flourish. That's my philosophy on leadership. And the other quote is from Harvey Firestone, which goes back to the first point we talked about. It is only as we develop others that we permanently succeed. And that goes on my headstone. If I ever die, the line is, it's Stephen Wright's line, I plan to live forever. So far, so good.
So far, so good. Yeah.
But it really is about developing other people. That's what leadership is. That's what coaching is. And as I tell my clients and students, it's my title may be career trainer or professor, but truly what I'm about and what I do is I empower people to make their dreams come true. And sometimes those dreams don't directly involve working for me. So move on.
Right. And again, another great word within that palette, right? Empowering others, allowing there to be space, or creating a safe space of support and success so that others can actualize. An extension clearly of that quote of yours about a great leader being a gardener. I'm particularly struck by the idea of the focus on the garden rather than on a particular plant. And, if you tend to the whole, we can be larger than the sum of our parts at times, depending upon the garden, of course.
Yeah, that was one of the downsides of working on Zoom for so long. You miss actually being in the same physical space as other people. And because of that interaction, things are created that you would not have imagined, whereas on Zoom that didn't exist as much. So that collaboration was missing.
Fair enough. Have you had in your own practice, in your own work, a return to in-person, or have you now had some hybrid work instead?
Less and less hybrid, more and more in person. And it's a real joy to be back in front of people and be able to hug them and look at them and pat them on the back and discuss things with them and confront them about issues. It's the real joy in that interaction, because as you and I both know, it's all about relationship. That's what.
Absolutely. And I'm delighted that you've had that experience. I can tell you that with the client base that I'm working with right now, that the hybrid model and having geographically dispersed workforces are indeed becoming more and more the standard. So I wonder how your thoughts turn towards leaders who have a virtual garden, who have these geographically dispersed plants, to extend the garden analogy a little bit further. Do you have any thoughts on how to lead when your workforce is in several different time zones, or when they convene for one day a month only?
It's tough, because it's not the same and never will be as in person.
Right.
If in a perfect world, you could go visit everyone at all the remote locations and sit down with them, even for a quick dinner, and get to know them as people, that would be great. I think what's very important if you're working globally, as both of us do, is understanding the culture, not just the time zone difference, but the culture of what it's like to work there.
Right.
I taught leadership courses for an MBA program in India last year, and very different culture. And it's important, if you're going to gain respect and trust, that you understand how they operate and what matters to them, which as an American, we always have to get off our high horse. That's not the way it works in the rest of the world. America to me or the United States anyway,
Right.
I call it a large room with no windows, as if nothing else exists. And you don't get to understand and appreciate and empathize with what it's like to work in India or anywhere else in the world, and what the culture is like, and how you have to have respect for that.
As a Canadian, I think we often will refer to Americans that exact same way. I appreciate the humility in that. I'm also interested in going back. There's that ever-present, maybe omnipresent, and a hackneyed cliche of "my door is always open." And I say it with a bit of drama, because the best advice I was ever given about hearing that on the job, I was quite young. I was in my early 20s after I'd finished my undergraduate degree. And having been employed by a provincial government in Canada, no idea what I was doing, just darn happy to be there. And I was told, while someone's door may be open, you might be better walking by it sometimes than crossing the threshold. And I honestly know I did not know at the time what any of that meant. However, it's stayed with me now many years later. And I've heard that my door is always open with my clients, and certainly with some of my own coaching clients as well as training clients. And it does at times fall under the "thou doth perhaps protest too much" idea, that just because you're saying that your door is open, maybe it would be better to show that in your deeds and in how it is that you are indeed making choices to support others, rather than celebrating perhaps a piece of, well, the architecture and how you're using the space. Does that at all connect with any of your thinking, Dr.?
Yes. My wife is a Freudian analyst. And what she taught me, something that I find a very interesting dynamic, that the way people relate in the workplace mirrors how it was for them as children growing up. So the mom and dad, or dad and dad, or mom and mom, doesn't matter.
Right.
When they get older, becomes the boss. That's the person they have to suck up to. That's the person that they're dependent on for keeping their jobs. So when they're little, they're children. Now they're in suits and they're workers, but it's the same dynamic. So you're always trying to please the boss as a worker, and you're jockeying for position with all the other children, now other workers, so you get favorable treatment. So if you're a leader and you buy into that, then I'm the daddy or I'm the mommy, and I will tell you what to do, and my word is the end of all of it. That's a very old-fashioned attitude, and unfortunately, a lot of leaders work that way because that's all they know. This is how my parents did it, so this is how I do it. It's the same thing, and they don't get to the other side of it, which is a collaborative effort and a concept I think I've created, the idea of situational leadership, meaning in a classroom, for example, I'm the leader. But if you and I are working together and we're cleaning a house, let's say, and you're the person in charge of it, I'm no longer the leader. You're the leader, and my job is to be a follower. So if you say, Dr. Austin, go sweep the floor, big shot, then my job is to say, yes, ma'am, and do the best job I possibly can. But the old-fashioned model is I'm the leader. I'm always the leader. I'm always right. And you're lucky to be working for me, you stupid child in a suit. So I hope that goes away toward answering the question.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it reminds me of a concept that I've not done nearly enough reading about, that I have wanted to do a lot of reading about, which is, we talk a lot about leadership and how to lead and leading this or not leading that. And we're even going on about it now in our own way. And the other complementing concept is followership and how to follow. And I would absolutely be on the side that successful leaders also know how to follow, perhaps learned how to follow before even they learned how to lead. I love that idea of followership. How do you feel about that one?
Oh, absolutely. You can't be a leader without followers. But again, it depends on the circumstance. The model I use when I talk to people in the U.S. is if we play on a softball team, and you make me, so I'm the leader in the classroom. You make me the leader or the manager for the softball team, we will lose. I guarantee it. The best place you put me is catching and batting ninth. That's the last person to bat.
Yeah.
Because in that environment, that's the appropriate use of my talents.
Right.
So I think it's really. I mean, years ago I worked in the home video business, and I was in sales, and then I was a buyer. So I understood the other side of the table and where people are coming from. And what's critical is that the team work together and people are appreciated, that everyone matters on the team, no matter what they do, whether it's the CEO or the janitor. It's just the janitor. The janitor doesn't show up for a couple of days. It affects everyone else. Everyone matters. But you have to understand in that environment, what's the best role for you. I don't know, probably for you too, I would guess. I have to be type A so much. It's such a release and relaxation for me to just go sweep the floor. Oh, what a joy. That's great. I don't have to think. It's very zen. Someone else can run things for a while.
Certainly. And the theme of everyone matters in your comments in terms of followership. I know that I spend a fair amount of my time with some of my high potential aspirational coaching clients, provide a spotlight on the value that they bring at their current level, wherever they may be in an organization, and how much no one else has that particular perspective, role, responsibility, etc., and how it is each of our opportunities, maybe each of our privileges, to educate each other as to exactly what it is that you do bring, whether you're at the top of the org chart or the bottom of the org chart. And as you said, if someone who's, in custodial services or the janitor doesn't show up for a couple of days, we notice.
Yeah, the problem is people aren't appreciated. And then the studies have shown the reason people stay at jobs is to be appreciated. That's the main driving, motivating factor, that you listen to me, that I'm appreciated, that I matter. Money is second. No one's going to work for free, but it's the appreciation that matters. And traditionally, and this again comes from childhood, parents always remind you about the things you didn't do. It's almost as if acknowledging you or giving you a compliment is going to take something away from them. And in the workplace, it's like, don't say good things to the employee. They're going to ask for a raise, as if someone's pulling money out of your pocket. Mm-hmm. And to me, acknowledging people and having them understand in an authentic way that I appreciate what you did, great job. It means so much to people that I'm being heard, I'm being appreciated. And we're so stingy generally. Leaders are so stingy about doing that. I actually had a boss once. I had a lieutenant who worked for me. I call him a lieutenant, my sort of second in command. And I thanked him one day profusely for helping me out. I just joined the company and he showed me where the landmines were. And I went and told my boss, he said, you shouldn't have said that. Now he's going to ask for a raise. I mean, that is such out-of-date thinking and so counterproductive to move forward. But I think that's the critical thing is businesses, organizations have to think about, or their leaders have to think about, how do you empower people? How do you acknowledge them? How do you make them feel that they're valued? That's why they'll stay. If people join companies and leave bosses, they don't appreciate me. But when you're growing up, it's always the parents going, why aren't you more like your sister? Well, that doesn't help me a whole lot. And that continues in the workplace. So it's always this competitive attitude that the boss sets up, like the daddy or mommy. And I'm astounded sometimes that things ever get done, as dysfunctional as people and organizations are. It just amazes me.
Well, there's a few sayings that come to mind. You can't pick your parents, you can't pick your children, can't pick where you're from, and depending on how you landed with all of those three, there can be a very interesting, perhaps, cocktail you bring to the workplace for sure. I love the idea, if we step back to that quote of yours of the leader as the tender of a garden, a gardener. And if we extend that to the care of the plants and the life within a garden, well, I would say that in part, at a high level of generalization, requires some consistency and some predictability and some methodology. If we look at a plant, there's benefits to regularly nurturing, watering, feeding, and weeding around that plant rather than doing so haphazardly. So there's a lot to be said there around leadership, and at the same time, a great segue for us to the next question that you selected, which was a question that reads, how do you provide feedback to others, for example, colleagues, staff, or leadership? And I would say to you that one of the tools of leading and maybe of gardening might be that offering of consistent sustenance. An example I would think of would be also feedback in our relationships. Does that connect for you as well?
Yes, absolutely. One of the things this came up last couple of weeks as I was teaching, you have yearly reports, or every 6 months you have to report on how your chargers are doing. An employee review, as it's called. And I'm somewhat of a subversive. William Burroughs said, if you look like everybody else, you can get away with anything. So the older I get, the more subversive I become. So when I've worked for companies, honestly, when my employees have employee reviews, I give them the highest marks. The company's looking for bad things so they can deny them the raises or give them less of a raise than they deserve. So listen, I've hired these people. My team has hired these people. I trust them. I know they're great. My job is to empower them and make them greater and let them see what they didn't even realize they could do. So I will acknowledge them for that. I'll give them the highest grades on their employee review, and then we'll sit down together and I'll tell them privately, yes, this is not going to go on your record, but these are a few things you need to tweak. And there's usually very little that needs to be tweaked because they're great at what they do. They're smart people. They're dedicated. They know I've got their back, and they're doing a good job. So I notice this is off and this is off and this is off. But employee reviews, the way they're structured, is I have to find something wrong with you. And in some cases, there just isn't. It's like reviewing a resume. Sometimes It actually had happened yesterday. I did some editing on a student's resume. He came back with it, and I said, I have nothing to say about this other than it's done. That's it. I don't have to fix everything. Some things are working just fine. So sometimes the employee review is you get the highest marks, and I'm really happy with what you're doing. And what do you need?
Right.
That simple.
And there's a lot to be said for trying to clarify what the intentions are behind feedback. So within a performance evaluation or performance review process, there's very structured approaches in terms of certain competencies or certain desirable behaviors to be measured against certain metrics and so on. Is there, outside of those structures, any thoughts that you have on more informal feedback?
Yeah, it's the sandwich, as you probably know, the sandwich model. So you work for me, and you need some correction on something. Something didn't go well. Hopefully by this time, there's nothing wrong with you. I don't think there's anything wrong with you. Something happened. It doesn't mean anything. We just need to fix it. So the sandwich is, Diana, you're doing a fabulous job. I'm really happy with you. And I hope you know that. And you say, yes, I do. And it's nice to work for you too. And then I say, something came up and we need to fix this. Oh, okay, fine. So, let me know if I can help you in any way. You can fix it yourself, but I want to point it out before it becomes a big problem. And let me know if I can support you. And then the bottom of the sandwich, the other piece of bread is, again, thanks for your work. And I really appreciate what you're doing. And that's it. So you don't shame people ever. Although so many bosses do. You never shame them in public. You never shame them even in private. But if there's some correction you need to make or some kind of feedback, you take it privately. And people get, I've called people into my office, and the rest of the crew, the staff goes, ooh, big trouble. No, it's not big. I actually have to say this. They're not in trouble. We just need to talk. Because people react like, oh my God, the boss, I must have done something wrong. And you didn't do anything wrong. There was a problem, okay? And we need to fix this. It's not about you. It's about the issue. It's just a problem. Right. There's no meaning. There's nothing wrong with you. Calm down, take a breath. It's fine. I'm not your daddy, and I'm not going to chastise you. We are colleagues. Okay. My role here is leader. Tonight, when we set up the dance that everyone's invited to, you're the leader, and I'm going to set up the chairs for you. So right now, this is what I see from my perspective. This is what needs, not so much what you need to do. This is what needs to be done. Great. Thanks for pointing that out. I hadn't seen that before. And at best, you do have that kind of response where they say, oh, thanks a lot. Appreciate that. Mm-hmm. They know it's okay, and they're not going to get beaten down because they were a bad child. It's just, here's something I saw that you didn't. And part of that trust thing and part of the gardener is sometimes they come to me and say, hey, did you notice? And I have to be humble enough to go, I didn't. Thank you very much. I will work on that. And then they know I can talk to this guy. He's okay. And he's consistent, as you pointed out. Going back to that analogy of children who grow up with alcoholic parents, they're always on their guard. There's no consistency. They never know how to behave because they don't know how their parent is going to behave. Are they under the influence or not? And people take that with them. So if you do create that safe space where they are heard and appreciated, they can exhale. And it's a safe place, and it's cool to come into work. And this guy, I like this guy, and he smiles at me. And it doesn't mean I want to be here every single day. Sometimes I need to call in. Well, I like the job, but not that much. But for the most part, this is a pretty cool place to work. Something else I do on a regular basis, which is weird, perhaps. I thank my people. And so you don't have to thank me. You're paying me. No, I know you worked really hard on this particular project, and I know it's not done, but I see what you're doing, and it's great. Good work. Go home. Go have a life. Because me and the job are not the most important thing in your life. It's your family. No one ever lay on their deathbed saying, God, I wish I'd spent more time at the office.
Of course. There's so much in what you've just offered. One of the themes that resonates with me and how I approach some of my work is the idea of depersonalizing. So what I often find, and certainly heard within some of your comments, is the notion of ensuring that we know where to put the focus when it comes to any feedback. And it's often as easy as it's actually not about you. It's certainly not about me in this scenario, if we are still in a leadership framework. It is about that it, whether we are referring to the it as a particular task or behavior or a problem that we can be on the same side of. So what are we going to do about it, and how is it going to be approached differently in the future, and where is it that we can go forward? And in addition to the depersonalizing, I'm often a big proponent for feedback to be exactly that, which is a forward focus. Some of us get so caught up in what may or may not have happened, and we can even get involved in debate or sometimes distracted by some of the minutia of experience or interpretation. And, I've learned sometimes we're all a little wrong. Sometimes we're all a little right. There's a lot of space there for some overlap. However, where we can all be on the same side of is we do and what we have intentions of negotiating to have mutual understanding to do the next time.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot there that I certainly would bring an echo to from your comments, and those are the two big pieces for me. Anything else from you?
Yeah, to riff off of what you just said, Diana, it's about the project, not the people. And stop throwing all this meaning in it. It's just a problem. My definition of management is a manager is someone who identifies and solves problems. That's it. And in a sense, even if you're an entry-level employee, you're managing a certain project. Don't have it. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a problem. Fix it. And we have resources here or outside the company, people we know who will help you get there. And all I'm interested in is results. Whatever you need to do to make it happen, whatever the process is, be as efficient as you can. Try to spend as little time on it as possible. And that's the game. How little time can we spend till we get to the results we want? So instead of digging through the internet for half an hour, you have a contact in another department and you call them, and in 30 seconds, they tell you what you need to do. Fine, fixed, next. It's always dealing with the problems and issues that come up. They never go away. And use the resources that you have, the people and other things at your disposal, and take all the meaning and drama out of it. We're addicted to drama. I'm in Hollywood, so it's everything's drama. So I have to tell people, your story is not that interesting. No one is going to make a movie about this particular problem you have. But if you just solve the problem, then you don't have something to gossip about and go, oh my God. And that's part of a leader's job is, in a positive sense, you look at your employees or your staff as children, yes, who in a positive sense, they do get upset. They want to do well, and a big problem came up, and oh my God. And your job is to be what I call a giant ear, where you just listen to them and they vent and they process. And after 10 minutes or whatever, they go, thanks for your advice. I didn't give them any advice. I just let them process it through. They don't need me to do anything. They fix it themselves. And eventually they realize, oh, another problem, I'll handle it. And if I want drama, I'll go to the movies.
Or just walk down the street to see where a movie might be shot if you're
here. Oh, absolutely.
There's a reference that comes to mind, and it might be urban legend or a myth. It's been appropriated in my world to Napoleon, believe it or not. And it's this idea of benign versus malignant attention. And the idea is, if you are really giving a lot of attention, it can be quite malignant at times, because it's indeed stifling and limiting, versus, the benign, almost removal of attention to allow some space. So, your story not being that interesting, as you said, can mean that there's space for someone to hopefully, as you also said at the start of our time together, actualize in their own thinking. Well, what is my story then? If it's not that, maybe it is that. And what am I doing here as I'm trying to figure out what the processing of this information is? And
if you write it down, I found it useful. For some people do. You write down what's the issue, what's the problem, in as few words as possible. It pulls all the drama out of it. Sometimes I've learned this over time. Sometimes problems take care of themselves. You don't have to do anything. It's very much a guy thing. Guys have to fix everything. And no, you don't have to fix everything. Sometimes your employees can fix it themselves. Sometimes it works itself out. You don't necessarily, that's the benign attitude. So just leave it alone. You don't have to manage everything. I was in New Zealand a few years ago and I went offline for 3 weeks by design, and the world still operated without me. Just astounding.
It didn't stop. Are you sure? I thought I felt a slight stop.
I couldn't believe it. No, and when I came back, 8 billion people said, "Oh, thank God he's back. We can get to it again."
There's a lot to be said for that piece of awareness. And oftentimes we have to earn it ourselves. Being told, go ahead, take some time. Often we need to learn that lesson in and of ourselves. Yeah. I think that's potentially one of the many lessons that people can take away from our conversation today. And as we wrap up our time together, allow me to say that I appreciate greatly the interconnectedness of your answers around how it is that there is what I would understand as a holistic approach in terms of how to lead and provide feedback. Is that a reasonable observation?
Yes, I think so. And I'm thinking as you're talking here, as we're wrapping up, this is a really intelligent person. We should go have coffee. Of course, there's a little geographical thing here going on. You're in Canada, I'm in Hollywood. But this is a really interesting person, and she has stimulating questions, and she's very thoughtful. Someone I would like to get to know better. If circumstances permitted, so what I'm asking is, would you be willing to move to Hollywood so we can have coffee? That's really.
I can't tell you the number of times I've had people ask me if I would be willing to move to Hollywood. In fact, I told you once. So thank you very much, Dr. Chaz. And I appreciate that while your comments about Zoom relationships are ones that are indeed a bit more strained than in person, perhaps we can have a Zoom coffee sometime. I would be very much interested in that.
Yes, I'd like that. That'd be great.
Thanks again for your time. Thank you for listening, everyone. Soft Skills Salon.
Thank you very much for listening to another dynamic and informative episode of the Soft Skills Salon with your host, Diana Kowarski. Please consider subscribing to our show wherever you listen to your podcasts. And we also encourage you to visit our website and social media links, which you can find in the show's notes. We look forward to bringing you another episode. And remember, conversation is the currency of communication. Bye for now.